on our top story. Calm is starting to return to Serbia's capital after violence broke out in Belgrade. We're now hearing most people have cleared the streets. Earlier, several hundred Serbs broke into the United States Embassy, tearing off doors, storming their way inside. We have word of at least one fatality at that building. For more analysis on what led up to these riots and what's next, we go to Alan J. Kuperman in Austin, Texas. He's with the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs. Alan, we just spoke on this issue a couple of days ago. You warned at the time that violence could be the result. Your thoughts as you see the pictures coming in from Belgrade?
It's tragic. It's tragic for Serbia, it's tragic for the Balkans, and it's tragic for U.S. foreign policy. This is pretty much an unmitigated disaster, and it could have been avoided.
How is it a disaster? Wasn't it predictable? If you're going to back a big segment of a country with historical roots like Kosovo has for Serbia, and you're going to back their independence, surely some kind of repercussion must have been forecasted.
You know, I think that American officials have been engaged in wishful thinking on this topic for a long time. They had convinced themselves that if they sided exclusively with the ethnic Albanians in recognizing Kosovo's independence, that the Serbs would just live with it. Essentially, they would suck it up. That Serbia wanted so much to be part of the European Union and to reap the economic rewards, to join NATO and to reap the security rewards, that Serbians would essentially relinquish control over part of their territory. And folks like me who visited the area over the years and talked with the people there knew that this was fantasy. But the U.S. State Department seems to have convinced themselves of it and to steamrolled ahead in the face of opposition from Russia, from some of our European allies like Spain, from independent academic analysts like me. They just went ahead. And as you say, this was the predictable repercussion.
It's important to recognize, though, the U.S. isn't alone in the recognition of an independent Kosovo. More than 20 nations have come out in favor, including Germany, Great Britain. So on that front, the U.S. doesn't stand alone. But it's pretty clear, you talked about Serbians sucking it up. They're not doing that tonight in Belgrade. Over 100,000 people showed up there. The government actually developed this, created this, wanted this protest. Not saying yet, though there'll be questions about this, whether or not they expected a violent outcome. But your thoughts looking forward on this then? Can you see any way that what has been done could be undone, or is this simply a situation that eventually Belgrade is going to have to accept?
Well, you know, you mentioned the fact that some other states have joined with the U.S., but it's actually a fairly limited number of states. I think that the State Department, the U.S. government, must be disappointed at this point because they spent the last 6 months to a year lobbying in Europe, hoping to get unanimity amongst the European Union. As you know, there are 27 countries in the EU, and the U.S. was talking about getting at least in the low 20s to join them, and that just hasn't happened. And especially not getting Spain, that I think was a real shock to the United States. Moreover, Russia, of course, is backing Serbia. China is backing Serbia and has condemned this action. So it starts to look like you might have a majority of countries not recognizing Kosovo. And those countries that are not recognizing Kosovo might represent a majority of the population on Earth. In that case, it seems that Kosovo's status is really in limbo. It won't be admitted to the United Nations, and so it'll have this sort of in-between status, sort of like Taiwan does, where it has an international personality, but it is not recognized in the major international organizations. And that sort of ambiguity is not good for stability and security. So in some ways it's the worst of all worlds. It's created instability and perhaps contagion in the region. Other areas may decide to announce their independence, and yet it hasn't accomplished its main goal, which is finally getting a final status for Kosovo that is assured and perpetual. That just hasn't happened.
There's the other side of this. There's a saying in Belgrade, I'm told, that Serbs will do anything for Kosovo except live there. Tremendous poverty in the area, 40% unemployment. Something had to happen in that country. You could say after 1999 and the UN resolution that created peace in that area, that it has been unstable and unsustainable. We have heard about problems with crime and affiliation with government officials there. If not this, then what, I guess is the question.
Well, there are a number of options that were on the table. One that had been pushed by Serbia itself was to give almost complete autonomy to Kosovo, in the sense that it would completely control its internal affairs, its education programs, its tax programs, its health programs, culture, and the only thing that it wouldn't control would be the aspects of international affairs, such as tariffs and border control. And the Kosovo Albanians, in negotiations, rejected this because the U.S. told them, if you reject this, we'll recognize your independence. So the Kosovo Albanians had zero incentive to compromise because the U.S. was backing them and their demands 100%. The other alternative, which I had proposed, is once we raised the hopes of these Albanians so high for independence, that we then had to do something to accommodate the Serbs. So what I talked about was, if we were going to recognize Kosovo, to make a precondition of that, to have the Serb area of Kosovo be a fully autonomous Serb Republic of Kosovo. It would have its own identity, its own Serb police force. Serbs would not be frightened of attacks from Albanians as they suffered in '99 and 2004. And this compromise proposal was also rejected by the United States.
Well, and we can see, I guess, tonight some of the results. Alan Kuperman, quite a scene in Belgrade. It's about 10:40 there now. The good news in all of this is that we've heard that peace has been restored to the streets of Belgrade. A lot of police out there tonight, but the crowds have dispersed. Thank you very much for joining us with your perspective. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.